Lisa with the Unemployment Services Trust. Welcome to today's webinar. This is going to be about a 25 to 30-minute webinar on how to best manage your nonprofit unemployment, your HR liability, and then we'll talk about some secrets to help with this. But first, we're doing this in conjunction with the Florida Nonprofit Alliance, and Brock Rosser, who's the Executive Director, is on the line with us, and he wants to say a few words. Brock?
Thank you, Lisa. And yes, welcome to everybody. We certainly appreciate our partner, the Unemployment Services Trust, bringing this information to you. We find it to be an exciting member-only value benefit that you can partake in. And I think that you'll learn a lot from this and, more importantly, learn how to save some money and make some revenue back so you can further your mission. So without further ado, Lisa, I'll let you explain the program.
Great. Thanks so much, Brock. I would like to remind everybody that this is being recorded, so afterwards you'll get an email with the presentation. So if you happen to miss something along the way, you'll have a chance to review it. And also there should be a question box on your screen, so if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and type those into the chat box and we'll go over them at the end of the webinar. So let's get started. And we're going to start with a quick poll. I would like to find out if you are currently paying state unemployment taxes or are you reimbursing for your own unemployment costs. If you don't know, that's fine, or if you're doing some other method, that's fine as well. But just go ahead and indicate what it is, and that'll help me kind of tailor the webinar. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So let's move on. I want to start by giving you some facts. 1 in 4 nonprofit employers are not aware of a unique unemployment tax alternative that could be saving them money. The money that's paid into the unemployment tax pool could be subsidizing for-profit companies. It also pays for the state's administration costs, and it is paying for claims that the state pays in error. On average, what we have found is the nonprofits that we've evaluated for this alternative unemployment method are usually overpaying the state by around $8,000 annually. So let's talk about the first secret, which is understanding your nonprofit rights. Just a little bit of history on the unemployment tax system. Unemployment, of course, was first created back in 1935 under FDR's Public Works program. Back then, nonprofits were not required to pay for unemployment taxes. Their employees, if they were laid off, could not, of course, collect unemployment, but they did not have to pay that unemployment tax. It wasn't until 1972 that the law changed, because at that time it was determined that nonprofits were actually employing a much larger sector of the population. So the federal government made nonprofits have to begin contributing to the state tax pool. But fortunately, through a lot of hard work that was put into changing that, nonprofits successfully lobbied to have an exclusive right to opt out of the state tax pool system and only pay for their own unemployment claims as they happen. So as a 501c3 nonprofit, because of that lobbying and hard work, you now have 2 options for paying unemployment. The first option is the traditional state tax program. This is how all for-profit businesses pay for their unemployment. You pay in premiums through a tax into the state tax pool, which the state will then use to pay for unemployment, for everyone's unemployment claims. This option really benefits organizations that have hit the maximum state tax rate and are probably paying less in taxes than what they have in claims. So organizations with maybe a high turnover or who employ a large seasonal staff, they'd be better suited for this state tax system. But on the other hand, if you're an organization with low claims, you could possibly be overpaying in unemployment taxes and funding everybody else's claims. So the second option is the reimbursing option. This is the special exemption for nonprofits where instead of paying into the state tax pool, you only pay for your own unemployment claims. So if you have no claims in any given year, you have no unemployment expense. Many nonprofits save a lot of money on taxes by using this option. So you're going to want to examine both options closely to determine which one is best for you. So if you are in the state tax system and you've not looked into reimbursing, we really recommend looking at your options, as this alternative could possibly be saving you money. UST was founded with the goal of helping nonprofits determine which option is best for them, and if staying with the state is the best option, then we're going to be the first ones to tell you that. So this is a screenshot of our website where you can provide us with some basic information, and we'll do an analysis of your unemployment costs. We use an actuarial model. We carefully look at your claims history, the size of your organization, the economy, and several other actuarial factors, and then that just helps us determine if you might be better served as a reimbursing employer. Again, this option is not the solution for every nonprofit, and we'll make sure we let you know that. Here are some considerations, assuming that reimbursing is a good fit for you, that we want to look at. There are some common problems that we see nonprofits struggle with if they're reimbursing on their own. A lot of organizations are unprepared for unexpected claims costs. Unexpected claims tend to have a natural volatility to them. So you might go several years just kind of cruising along with only 1 or 2 claims a year, and then all of a sudden maybe you lose some funding or you close a program, and now you have to lay several people off and you've got 10 claims all of a sudden. That unexpected increase in claims is going to be very disruptive to your cash flow. This makes budgeting a lot harder because of often those layoffs, you can't tell that they're coming. So how do you know how much money to set aside for unemployment? Another issue is that unemployment is very time-consuming. Monitoring the process of claims takes away from the duties in the HR department, and outsourcing the processing of claims can cost a lot of money. Lastly, you run the risk of noncompliance. The new UI integrity law that was implemented about 1.5 years ago makes it so that you must respond to the requests of the state or face some repercussions. Some states will fine you for not being in compliance. Others will go as far as taking away your ability to protest claims, which will definitely increase your costs. So there's some hazards with being reimbursing, and we want to make sure that you have assistance and support in all of those areas. So why would you consider choosing UST? Well, first and foremost, we'll again help you determine if this option of reimbursing is what's going to be the best fit for you. Whether you are in the state tax system or you're already reimbursing, we want to make sure that this is still a good fit for your organization. And if it is, we'll provide a 2-year projection so that you can see what reimbursing with us will look like. We have found savings of up to 60% compared to the state tax system. So when you're ready to make the switch, what we'll do is file all the paperwork with the state that will get you out of paying your taxes. And if your state happens to require a bond to become reimbursing, we'll post the bond on your behalf so you don't have to have that expense and work to do. And then lastly, we'll help you build a reserve. And a reserve is one of the most important things because it helps protect your organization against future liability. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I'm going to give you a quick overview of UST. We were founded in 1983 by a group of nonprofits here in Southern California. We're run by a board of trustees who are all CFOs and executive directors of different nonprofits from all across the country. We are a member-owned program, so that means that only 501c3s belong to UST, and they're owners of the trust, so we're what's called a grantor trust. We are not a for-profit entity. Everyone that belongs is a reimbursing employer, and we're focused on ensuring that reimbursing is the best option for you and that it's the most effective way for you to handle your unemployment. We also strive to have the lowest administration costs for unemployment in the nation, and currently we have over $145 million in assets, and with over 2,000 nonprofit members, we're the largest nonprofit unemployment trust in the nation. And then last but not least, we recently ran a poll with our members, and 96% of them came back and said they would recommend us to another nonprofit, and I think that says quite a bit about us. We also have over 80 Affinity partners who endorse us, including Florida Nonprofit Alliance. They help get the word out about being a reimbursing employer and doing it through UST. So you can see all across the country that we have nonprofit associations that try to make sure that their members are aware of this specific option that they have as a 501c3. UST provides an integrated support for current and future reimbursing nonprofits. We want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this reimbursing option and that you're protecting yourself from various angles. Our members receive an unemployment claims administrator that's going to help them protest, monitor, and control the cost of unemployment claims. We have an HR hotline for employee-related questions. And we also provide additional training for your managers. And then, of course, asset protection by building that reserve that I mentioned to protect you from future liability and the volatility that comes with unemployment claims. The savings from unemployment taxes and effectively protesting claims puts money back into the pockets of nonprofits that's going to help them advance their mission. Here's another pop quiz question. What year was the federal law that entitled 501c3 organizations to opt out of their state UI tax system? Okay, and yes, the answer is 1972. Again, nonprofits had successfully lobbied to have that option to opt out of their taxes and just reimburse the state for their own claims. So here are the details about the account that you have here with UST. We work with an outside actuary who is going to help determine your appropriate annual contributions. Any money that is put into your reserve is your own money. It's money owned by your organization. It is not a tax liability. It's money that's going to be set aside as a safety net. So if you have an increase in claims, your reserve will step in and cover that increase, and it's not going to disrupt your cash flow. So down the line, if your claims are lower than we expected and you actually have a healthy reserve, every year our actuary will determine if your account is adequately funded and return any extra funds to your organization. This is your money, and we don't want to hold on to anything more than we need to pay for your ongoing claims and protect you from future liability. This is what's called an experience credit, and last year we actually refunded over $11 million to our members doing this. Also, the money that's in your account is being conservatively invested to earn you investment income, and this is designed to help to offset the administration costs. So over time, as you have a larger reserve, the investment income should completely offset your operating expenses, and you'll be participating in the program at no cost. Depending on the year, at least around 50% of our members do this or actually participate for free because their investment income is doing this and completely covering their operating expenses. The way that we determine these contributions is through, again, our actuarial model, but just to give you some insight, we see contributions typically break out in the 70-20-10 approach. So that means that 70% of your contributions is going to go towards covering your ongoing unemployment claims, 20% is going to go towards funding your reserve, and then the remaining 10% is to cover the administration costs. And keep in mind that this slide does not show the investment income that's going to reduce the actual cost for participation. So secret number 3 is protecting your future liability. and protecting your funding. So this slide is going to show how UST handles the fluctuation in claims by building that reserve that I keep mentioning, and how the reserve is going to work for you. So under normal circumstances, we're going to want you putting in slightly more than you're using in claims. So that way, over time, you're building this reserve. So when and if you do happen to have a spike in claims, your contributions, which is this dark blue line, doesn't have to increase that much, because we can now draw down on the reserve that we've been building. And that can go on for years and years. Your contributions can remain relatively stable, while your claims can be quite volatile. And yet, here is another pop quiz. On average, what % of UST members participate at no cost each year? And yes, again, it is 50%. So even though it's a member-owned program and everyone does share the administration costs of the program, again, that investment income offsets about 50% of our members' costs, so they participate for free. Let's take a look at the next part of the program that's very important, and that's our claims administrator. This is because claims and protesting them can be very complicated. There are a lot of steps that go on, and we want to make sure that you have the support and the resources you need to successfully protest those claims. We feel it's ideal to end at the initial protest level, because at that point the claimant hasn't received any benefits from the state. If you are with UST, the claims administrator is going to do most of the work for you. You, of course, have to be involved at the level of the initial separation, because you'll have to collect all the documentation around the write-ups and the final termination. Then if the individual files a claim, the claims administrator is going to file all that paperwork to the state on your behalf. They'll make sure that it's all submitted, and everything that needs to be submitted that they've asked for is submitted on time. So this is all done so that you can successfully protest at the initial level. But if it does go on further and the claimant appeals it or you appeal it, because you lost at the initial level, our claims administrator again is going to accompany you to each and every hearing. Unemployment claims are very time consuming. If you have multiple ones going on at once, it can be pretty hard to track and monitor each one. So the fourth secret is better managing your unemployment claims and reducing your liability to help you better manage those claims. As a member of UST, you'll have a claims administrator that's going to do all the heavy lifting for you. You, of course, as I mentioned, will have to be involved at the initial separation. When there's a new claim, our claims administrator is going to notify you of that, and then they'll request all the information that the state's going to need, depending on what kind of a claim it is. If the person was laid off, it's going to be a lot less information that's needed than if they were someone that was fired for cause. So you send the claims administrator any write-up forms and documents pertaining to the former employee, and they're going to formulate a written response on your behalf and send any protest filings to the state. This is where 80% of our members' claim cycle ends. But if the claim does go on further and there is an appeal from you or the claimant, the claims administrator is going to accompany you to the hearing. You do have to go because they do require a first-hand witness, but the hearing rep will be attending with you. They're going to provide all the documentation. They're going to prep you for any testimony, do any cross-examining of witnesses, and give the opening and closing statements. If a claim ever goes beyond a hearing, the claims administrator will also do that for you as well. This is all included with participation in the trust. So you can see that the workload from an HR perspective is significantly less because they're doing much of the day-to-day details for you. Not only will our claims administrator help you with protesting of a claim, but they will advise you on which claims you need to tackle. Naturally, there are types of claims that will most always be granted unemployment benefits, but the claims administrator can help you decide when to protest improper claims. And we found that nonprofits who use our claims administrator, about a third of those claims were protestable, and 83% of those were won. So if you can imagine that you're cutting your costs by a little less than a third through claims management, that's a pretty big number that can make a significant difference depending on the size of your organization. So let's say you do end up having to go to a hearing. So that's after the initial protest and you're appealing an unfavorable decision. The thing you need to do, of course, is come prepared. Make sure that you have all the documentation ready. Be prepared with your testimony. Have your opening and closing statements ready to go. You're going to want to make sure that this is all done ahead of time. Working with UST, we, again, have that local representative that's going to be attending every single hearing with you so that you don't have to ever go to these by yourself again, and you'll have an expert working for you along the way, again, cross-examining the witness, making those opening and closing statements, and just ensuring that all the documentation is being presented in a way that the judge is hopefully going to side with you and overturn that claim. This is a screenshot of the Claims Dashboard. It's called Case Builder. This is where you would find your claims information. You'll be able to run reports on who's collecting benefits, how much was awarded, how much they've collected, and much more. In this example, there are 38 action items. That means there are 38 claims out there pending that you need to submit documentation for. And out of 38, 34 of those are urgent. You can customize that as far as when they become urgent. Is it 3 days before the deadline, 5 days? And the nice thing about this is historically working with the state is no news is good news. So if you have a favorable decision, Case Builder is going to point that out to you. So down here on the bottom right, you can see that that this shows that there were 4 favorable decisions in this case. So you can look at that and go, okay, this claim was overturned. The person was originally awarded $5,000 and now they can't collect. So that you can see that your savings right there in front of you, and you can present that as part of the savings that your HR department is providing rather than just being a part of the cost center. This is a slide that shows the overpayments of benefits by the states that is well into the billions. As a reimbursing employer, any overpayment by the state is a cost to you. So who's auditing these charges for you? This basically says that the states overpay 1 in 10 claims, and again, that adds up to billions of dollars. So with UST, all those claims are audited to make sure that the amount the claimant was awarded is what they're receiving. So if John Doe is laid off, he's awarded $500, we make sure that that's what he gets instead of, say, $600 or $1,000. Last year alone, we found and recovered over $2 million in charges in state errors for our members. Yes, here is another pop quiz. What percentage of claims protested were won by UST member nonprofits last year? And the answer is 80%. Thank you. So let's move on to the 5th secret. This is having access to the right HR tools. So we have an HR hotline and a library for your whole human resources department to have access to through UST. This, again, is included in the program, so there's never any extra cost for it. It includes live phone calls with certified HR advisors. You can call them for any questions about state tax, compliance laws, Affordable Care Act, COBRA, FMLA, or you can log in online and ask the questions through the website. They have a 24-hour turnaround time, and they'll provide any documentation for compliance that you might need. There's also an HR library where they provide templates around write-up forms, job descriptions, checklists, employee handbooks as well. And then lastly, they provide over 200 online training courses for your employees and managers. And one of the most important ones that I have found is the sexual harassment training. There are a lot of states that already have or are about to make this mandatory, where your managers and supervisors have to have sexual harassment training, and organizations can pay a significant amount of money for that training. But this is included through UST, through the HR services line that we have. So you wouldn't have to pay anything extra to send your management team through any training in addition to the sexual harassment training. This is a snapshot of what the Think HR online system looks like. So you can see, again, some of the common questions such as COBRA, FMLA, interview questions, termination questions, and up here is where you can find the over 200 on-demand training courses. You can sign your employee up and it'll send them an email and walk them through the program to complete the training and get you a certificate of completion. This is a picture of our UST team. Just so that you know, if you join the trust, you will have a dedicated account manager who's going to help you manage your reserve, answer all your questions, and just make sure that everything's running smoothly for you. So benchmarking your costs is easy, whether you're reimbursing or tax rated. You can head over to your website, fill out your name and organization, give us some unemployment claims history, and then we're going to provide you with a full breakdown of what we think your savings is with reimbursing, what the cost for participating is, and what your estimated investment income would look like. It'd be a fully broken out proposal that you can review, and we'll go over it with you, and we'll also give you what we would expect your reserve to look like over a 2-year period, so you can see what that money's doing and where it's sitting. So in most states, the deadline for opting out of the tax system is November 30th of every year, except for California and Minnesota. They're actually allowed to opt out quarterly. But if you were to decide to opt out today, the state won't make it active until next January 1st of 2016, but just because you can't fully enroll until then, if you decided you wanted to join the trust and send in the paperwork, we will give you access to the Think HR hotline and online system until the state changes your status to reimbursing, and you could have all this for free. So your contributions and full enrollment wouldn't be effective till January 1st, and you wouldn't be paying anything for those services until then. You could also have access to our claims administrator. They would do telephone conversations to give you advice on claims. They can't legally represent you in the court hearings until the effective date, but you could get these two things for free as soon as you say, yes, you do want to enroll and become a member of UST. So if there are any questions, please go ahead and type them in the question box. So I don't see any questions, but there is a short video that I would like to play for everyone to get a little bit more of an idea about the members of UST, and then in the meantime, if anybody types any questions in, we can look at those afterwards. Here we go. Hold on, it's taking just a minute to load. Well, I hope it's going to load. Here we go. The gazillion words that I could use to describe UST, I think that they all build up.
It is very, very easy to participate in the trust, and that's where other organizations are missing out.
I'm only paying in for my own claims versus going into the state where I'm subject to all the other employers out there and all of their claims. I mean, that's huge for me.
I guess the single greatest advantage is it really saves. that is the truth of being good stewards of the being part of the trust and one word I would describe as
Partner. I see UST is being a valuable business partner.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I don't see any questions or comments, so we'll go ahead and end the webinar. And again, I want to thank the Florida Nonprofit Alliance and Brock for attending this. And everyone, as a reminder, you'll be getting an email with a link to this webinar. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your week.